She nursed an enemy's baby. Years later, a warrior returned calling her mother. The silence after loss. The frontier was loud in ways people never spoke about. Wind screaming across empty land. Wood cracking in winter. Gunshots echoing long after the men were gone. But the loudest sound Margaret Hale knew was silence. It followed her everywhere. 2 years had passed since her husband died, yet the space he left behind still felt fresh, raw, like a wound that refused to close. Thomas Hale had been strong, careful, and unlucky. He left one morning with a supply convoy and never returned. They sent back his coat. They sent back his rifle. They never sent back his body. Margaret buried what she could not see. She stayed because there was nowhere else to go. Her cabin stood alone at the edge of New Mexico territory, where maps faded into warnings and the land stopped belonging to anyone who claimed it. Settlers called it the frontier. Soldiers called it hostile ground. The Apache called it home. Margaret simply called it survival. She lived quietly, helped deliver babies, cleaned wounds, sat with the dying. People trusted her hands even if they feared her loneliness. And loneliness was safer than hope. A cry that should not exist. The cry came just after midnight. At first, Margaret thought it was the wind. The frontier often played tricks on the mind. But then it came again, thin, broken, desperate. A baby. Margaret's breath caught in her throat. No baby belonged out there. Not after dark. Not beyond the ravine. Her hand hovered over the door latch. Every lesson the frontier had taught her screamed the same warning. Do not go outside. But the cry weakened. Margaret grabbed her lantern. She stepped into the cold. The woman in the dust. The lantern light found blood first. Dark. Soaked into the dirt. Then a body. An Apache woman lay twisted near the ravine, her chest still, her eyes staring past the stars. An arrow had torn through her side, the shaft snapped, the wound already fatal. But her arms were wrapped around a small bundle. The baby was alive, his lips were blue from cold, his cry barely a sound. Margaret knelt. She did not think about soldiers. She did not think about Apache warriors. She did not think about what this would cost her. She only thought, not another life. She lifted the child. Behind her, the land remained silent. The impossible decision. Back in the cabin, the baby screamed with hunger. Margaret tried water, milk, softened cornmeal. Nothing worked. The baby's cries became weak, panicked. Margaret sat down, shaking. She knew what had to be done. The frontier would never forgive her for it. I don't know your name, she whispered, tears falling freely, but I won't let you die. When the baby latched on, the world stopped. The child fed. Margaret cried, not in fear, but in grief, relief, and something dangerously close to love. A secret that could kill her. She named him Samuel, not to erase where he came from, but to give him something to hold onto if the world ever tried to take everything else away. She hid him, told settlers he was an orphan from a raid. Some believed her. Some did not ask questions they were afraid of answering. At night, Margaret listened. She knew Apache scouts were watching. She knew the child's people would come. She only prayed they would understand. The night of footsteps. It happened before dawn. Soft footsteps. Shadows moving outside. Margaret woke instantly. The door burst open. 6 Apache warriors stood inside her cabin, weapons drawn, faces unreadable. Margaret did not scream. She pulled Samuel closer. The tallest warrior stepped forward. His hair was streaked with gray, his eyes sharp with grief and intelligence. He looked at the child, then at Margaret, then he lowered his weapon. He knelt. In broken English, he spoke one word. Mother. The brother. His name was Taza. The dead woman had been his sister. He had followed the trail. Expected blood. Expected theft. Instead, he found mercy. Margaret offered the child back with shaking hands. Taza shook his head slowly. "The child lives because of you," he said. "You are his mother now, also." Margaret collapsed into tears she had held back for years. A child between worlds. Samuel grew up in two worlds. By day, Margaret taught him letters, numbers, prayer. By night, Apache elders taught him songs, stories, and the meaning of honor. He learned compassion from a woman who had lost everything. He learned strength from a people who refused to disappear. He belonged to both, and to neither. The return of war. Peace never lasts on the frontier. As Samuel grew older, the fighting returned, harsher, bloodier. Settlers burned villages. Soldiers hunted shadows. Apache warriors fought to survive. Samuel stood between them. At 16, he made his choice. He rode away with his people, not out of hatred, but duty. Margaret watched him disappear into the dust. She did not know if she would ever see him again. The long wait. Years passed. Margaret aged quietly. Her hair turned silver. Her hands trembled. Every rider brought fear. Every knock brought hope. She kept Samuel's childhood blanket folded near her bed. The warrior returns. One evening, riders appeared. Margaret braced herself for death. A tall Apache warrior dismounted. He removed his weapon. He knelt. "Mother," he said. Samuel had returned, not as a boy, not as an enemy, but as a bridge. The last goodbye. Margaret died months later, peacefully. Samuel buried her with honor. Apache and settler stood together, silently, awkwardly, respectfully. The frontier remembered her not as a traitor, but as a woman who chose mercy when hatred was easier. What remains? Long after the wars faded into history, her story survived. Because love does not need permission. And mercy, once given, never truly dies. Subscribe for more emotional long stories. Right finger like and share to support meaningful storytelling.